Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel. Tap the notification bell, like this video. That helps me to keep making videos. And I would appreciate it majorly. This is going to take a little time. I don't know how long, but I'm going to try to go through it as systematically as possibly and as carefully as possibly, And this is a continuation of I'm operating under this theory that Trump basically somehow was able to blackmail Hillary Clinton into losing the 2016 presidential election on purpose. And I've thought this for some time. One of the main reasons is because of the numbers. In the states, the critical swing states, she did so awfully that it's almost impossible she could have done that badly without her doing it intentionally. I'm not going to get into that right now, but for the longest time, I couldn't figure out how he managed to do that. How did he get her to lose on purpose? What did he have on her? And then this Epstein thing popped up, and it immediately became like, that's it. That's it. And obviously, these are just theories. I don't know this, but every time something else, a layer is peeled back, it's just more circumstantial evidence, in my opinion, that supports what I believe. And here we are again. Okay, and I don't know this person. I don't have anything against any of these people. I'm just trying to tell you what I believe this is the truth. And and like I said, these are just theories. And honestly, I think the Southern District of New York is thinking the same, similar ways that I'm thinking. Okay. So, but this woman here, her name is Lauren Book, and she's a state senator in Florida, in the 32nd district, which I think actually was created because of redistricting. She became a state senator there in 2016, when the previous senator basically termed out. She's fairly young for a state senator, but her father's a huge lobbyist in Florida, probably the most powerful lobbyist in all of Florida. His name's Ron Book. And she was an advocate for child sex abuse because she herself suffered, serious child sex abuse from the age of 12, I think, up to 18 by her nanny, who was convicted and it basically pled to a number of charges. I think she is currently serving 15 years in prison. And she after she pled in 2002. I don't know exactly, but she absolutely was a victim of very severe child sex abuse, starting when she was 12 and it went on for 6 years, and by her nanny, who was a woman. And first it started with kissing, but it kept moving up, and she was just a child. She had no idea. The nanny threatened to out her, and because her father was a public person, she was afraid to come forward. Many things, but it got more and more serious, more and more graphic, more awful. It's in this Sentinel, or not Sentinel, new Miami New Times report. And it talks about one aspect where she's thinking about becoming a state senator. She's thinking about making a run for the state senate in 2016, which she eventually did. But after going to college, as an undergraduate and graduate student at University of Miami, she started a foundation for kids and advocating for, speaking for, raising money for kids, for the cause of child sex abuse, okay, and becoming a force for that, a good force for that. But at the same time, her father is an extremely powerful lobbyist in the entire state of Florida, and her potentially getting into politics, which It was a logical step because her father's a huge lobbyist and obviously a very political person and probably very wealthy to boot. But others had concerns about that because even before she got into politics, basically some people familiar with politics in Florida, even without her in office, basically were saying in order to get Ron Book, her father, to support or not go against a certain issue of theirs, they may need to make a donation um, to her foundation. Lauren's Kids is what it was called, and there's this is the Facebook page. She's the chief executive of it, and there's various persons that are board members on it. Some, one person's a judge. I'm sure these are very prominent persons in the community in Florida. But this is it says right here, and it's just natural, that the potential of her candidacy has at least 3 insiders contacted by this newspaper bristling. Already, the insiders allege businesses and politicians funnel money to Lauren's Kids to gain points with her father's powerful political machine. It's no surprise that such an ambitious young woman would seek office, they say, but it's worth critiquing the forces that are propelling her. Any big corporation that needs good press can make a donation to curry favor with Ron Book, says Nancy Smith, the Sunshine State News editor. Companies donate so that he will represent them at some point, so that he won't go against one of their projects. Nonsense, says Ron Book. Any allegations of quid pro quo are outlandish and completely false claims. But it's just common sense, okay? And in fact, this is Lauren, the woman, his daughter, her response to that. Political points, question mark, in quotes. I want to be clear about one thing. I was raped every day for 6 years, and they were the 6 most horrible and horrific years of my life. I felt guilty, ashamed, invisible, bad, dirty, hurt, and afraid every single day from the time that I was 11 until I was 16. Children in every community on the planet are also enduring the pain I suffered. I'm trying to turn my personal pain into something positive and hopefully prevent this from happening to others. Okay, so my point is that if you question the motives, particularly on the topic of this topic, it's very quite likely you're going to get read the riot act from this person, because she had actually suffered true, very bad, child sex abuse from ages 12 to 18 or 12 to 16. I think the age of 16 is the age of it goes into it. It's very graphic, to the point where basically the nanny got jealous when when Lauren got her first boyfriend, who I think she eventually went on to marry, is a professional golfer, was her first husband when she was 16, and the nanny got jealous, and then it started from there. And the boyfriend overheard the nanny yelling at Lauren over the phone, and he basically said, "You either go forward or I'm going to tell," because she was being abused by this woman. And then, because it got even worse after that, it even says that Flores, the nanny who was molesting her, retaliated by sodomizing her with a fork, she writes. And I'm only saying that to illustrate that it was very bad child sex abuse. But like I said, if that makes it very difficult to critique some of the things that I'm going to critique in a minute here, okay? But I'm going to critique them anyways, because this is just there's just too many layers of coincidence that I just can't ignore it. I just can't. I just cannot. So she's a state senator now. She's been, she's on her second term. Started in 2016. She was reelected in 2018. Basically, whoever's the Democrat's going to win in that district, as I understand it. And she's calling for Florida Department of Law Enforcement to investigate the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for their treatment of Epstein during his his 13 month jail sentence, where he was on work release most of the time, and in that time it's being reported that there's accusations that he had women brought to him in his in his office that he had set up and that he was allowed to go to for work release, and that basically I think his jail cell was left unlocked. There's a variety of accusations, and that security was paid. He paid large sums for I think deputies of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office to escort him to and from the office where he had where he was allowed to go to and work. And one woman actually does claim that she was abused by him during that time. So Lauren Book wants that investigated, and she's also calling on the governor, Ron DeSantis, to probe that as well, to probe the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and in their conduct as it relates to that. Like I said from the very beginning, I'm operating under this theory that I believe that Trump was able to blackmail Hillary Clinton into losing the election on purpose. And there's so many things that I just can't get into in one single video, but this is just another instance where, of all the state senators there are in the state of Florida, there's 17 Democrats. And I was just looking through all their Facebook pages, because of this picture, because I saw the picture of Lauren Book and Hillary Clinton, and this is actually Anna Wintour, the editor-in-chief at Vogue, and who has been the editor-in-chief at Vogue since I think 1988, who actually was just recently in the news not long ago, a few days ago, because she was asked about Melania, the current first lady, and she answered it by not answering it and just saying how wonderful and glamorous Michelle Obama was, and she was in the news for that reason. This event here is Glamour Magazine's Women of the Year for 2018. It's in New York City. And Hillary Clinton was a speaker at it. She was there because some of the Parkland shooting survivors, a few of the women, were I think invited, and maybe even were Glamour Women of the Year as well. So she was there, and that's from her district, the 32. 32 is Broward County. It's Coral Springs, and it includes Parkland. That was her district. But like I was saying, of the 17 Democratic senators in the state of Florida, she's one of only a couple that are photoed with Hillary Clinton, And, I mean, I spoke about this in my previous video, that the only campaigning Hillary did during the 2018 midterms, the only thing she did was go to Florida. And I thought it was very strange because Florida basically, Andrew Gillum was leading in the polls, and he was up for, it was almost a shoo-in that he was going to win, Of all the other states, that was the one I thought it was gone. And it was similar to the presidential election, where just this miracle came out of nowhere. The polls had closed a little bit by the day of, but he was still up by 4 points, maybe a little more. And then he ended up losing. And it seemed exactly like the 2016 presidential election. And I had already by that point believed that she lost on purpose, and lots of things led me to believe that, whatever. So I just found it odd. And then I later learned that the only place she went during the 2018 election midterms was Florida. So she's not in Florida, actually. This is 6 days after the election. The election was on November 6th. This is November 12th. And Lauren Book is actually in New York City. But when I was looking through all the other state senators in Florida, of the 17, the only other person that she's photoed with there's two others. One is individual, since actually not in 2018, but it's in 2000 presidential election as well as all the other elections. And it just so happens Bobby Powell is the state senator of Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County is the sheriff's office that she's now calling to be investigated. That's the only other state senator that Hillary Clinton is photoed with on all the other Facebook pages, except for one more. There is one more, and his name is Victor Torres. And the only reason I think, and this is during the 2016 election as well, originally from New York City. Grew up, was born and raised in New York City, and eventually retired to Florida. And he's, he's a very, very active career in politics in Florida. So, but that's the only other person, in addition to the two that I'm looking at here, is Bobby Powell. And it just seems such a huge coincidence that the only person she's pictured with is the state senator of Palm Beach County, where Jeffrey Epstein served his sentence, and where he, I guess that's where he had a home, and where he was being prosecuted, even though it got moved to, Miami, the Southern District of Florida, so that Acosta could oversee it, okay? And the only other person besides Bobby Powell is this state senator, who's now calling for an investigation into the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office for, because of their conduct during Jeffrey Epstein's 13-month jail sentence, where he was, in the county jail but allowed on a work release, and allegedly, women were brought to him, according to the attorneys representing some of the victims. At least one of them claimed, she was abused. So, I mean, it just seems like a pretty big coincidence to me, and obviously, it's hard to, to question these things, particularly because this woman is a victim of child sex abuse herself, pretty severe child sex abuse. I'll just make a quick side note, just because it's just, Ron Book, her father. So he's the most powerful lobbyist in Florida, according to more than one report that I read. Has represented some of Florida's richest companies, the Miami Dolphins, AutoNation, the GEO Group, among them. Remember the GEO Group? Anybody remember the GEO Group? That is the prison company, private prison company, okay, who was recently in the news because the Antifa guy was killed at their facility, and he was trying to firebomb it with Molotov cocktails, and he had a rifle, and he was shot by officers. I can't remember the town. I know it's south of Seattle. I can't remember the name of it. The town. And it was their police department. Darn it. Antifa. Tacoma. The Tacoma Police Department. I think it was 4 Tacoma police officers responding to, a call, and he had a rifle. He was throwing Molotov cocktails. But the facility, and it was a detention center holding immigrants. And the company that runs the private detention center is GEO Group, and they're based out of Florida. It's a publicly traded company, 21,000 employees. I forget the market cap, number of $1 billion. Who knows? But I just remember thinking, gee, that's kind of crazy, because they had just passed a $4.6 billion, spending measure to address the crisis at the border. I assume that some of those that $4.6 billion would make its way to, detention facilities. I don't know that for a fact, but then the fact that it was based in Florida, because I find everything seems like the epicenter of this corruption is in the state of Florida, and people are like, oh my God, now you're blaming Trump for that, And here it is. Here's the law. One of the most powerful lobbyists in Florida, the most powerful lobbyist, and one of his clients is GEO Group. You know, it wouldn't shock me if when you got tax returns from Trump, if it turns out that he's got investments or in certain companies that might present pretty big conflicts. It wouldn't shock me at all. It's just a total side note. So, I don't lay these things out that great, okay? But somebody will. And I really think the Southern District of New York is thinking very similar to me. I really do, dude. If you recall, I've gone through some of Hillary's book signing events, right? One of them, and this is in 2017. Her book was launched in September of 2017. One of them was Broward, Florida, okay, which is where this woman's district is, Lauren Book. And then she went on to the very next day, the very next visit was to Davis, California, okay, which isn't far from Stanford. And she went on to speak at Stanford. And then, later that year, who was the Kavanaugh accuser, came out. And then a year after that, actually, but at that time in 2017, Vanessa Tyson, the first accuser of the lieutenant governor of Virginia. This is stuff that if you haven't been watching my videos on this, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But it all adds up to this vast conspiracy between the Trump and Hillary camp. And basically, it seems like where Hillary has been completely blackmailed by Trump. I mean, Epstein. There are a number of different stories out there about. That Epstein was running a blackmail scheme. And that's where I'm getting this, this idea from, that I couldn't figure out how Trump got Hillary to lose on purpose. And then I saw the story about Epstein and how many people who run money professionally don't believe he was, his investment company was a front for actually a blackmail scheme that he was running. And it just also turns out that this Lauren Book, I've talked about how Ron DeSantis, he took a trip to Israel, which, with a few state senators, one of them was Lauren Book, okay, to have this ceremony of signing some state law that actually it was a sort of a pretend ceremony, because they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to actually sign a state law outside of the confines of the state, or even outside of the confines of the capital of Florida, which is Tallahassee. But she was on that trip, okay, and Sheldon Adelson, the casino magnate, the billionaire, and basically kingmaker in the Republican Party, as I understand it, he and his wife accompanied the governor on their trip to Israel. So, I was looking through her Facebook page, because a lot of her most recent topics are on sex trafficking. And because, naturally, because before she got into politics, she was an advocate for, I don't know how many years. Basically, straight from college, she started this Lawrence Kids, foundation. That was, I think her father helped her with it and stuff, naturally. But, all the things that have been in the news about Acosta, this is her Facebook page, and all the things that are in the news, the recent news, she's making comments about. For instance, wanting Epstein, the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office to be investigated, to be probed by the governor, or be investigated by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The sex trafficking case in Juniper, Florida, involving the owner of the Patriots, Robert Kraft. That's in her feed, and introducing other laws where there's a law that I think the Governor DeSantis, and this goes back a couple months, of outlawing child sex dolls. Okay, and these are all obviously that's a good. I certainly support all that. But it's interesting, because this whole Epstein thing came to because of the Miami Herald article that started back in November of 2018. Okay, November 28th. And actually, this is that event. This is Glamour Magazine's Glamour Women of the Year in New York City in November of 2018, on November 12th. You know, this is where she's pictured with Hillary Clinton. Okay? But the story that broke this thing completely wide open was on November 28th. And there's no mention of that. None in her feed. Okay? And here's November 28th. It's talking about, concealed carry. There's no mention of the Miami Herald article. None of it. Okay? Until present day. None of that. Back in November of So that's it. That's the story there. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.